The alien ships appeared above Earth on a Tuesday morning. They were huge, bigger than any city, and they glowed with soft blue light. People around the world stopped what they were doing and stared at the sky. After 200 years of searching for life among the stars, life had found them first. Captain stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel, watching the alien ships through the main window. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes. He had been a military officer for 30 years, but today he wore a simple blue uniform with no weapons. Behind him stood Dr. Sara, a scientist who studied alien life, even though they had never found any until now. Next to her was Commander, head of Earth Security Forces, who kept his hand near his sidearm even though they had agreed to come in peace. The aliens called themselves the Galactic Collective. They sent a message in perfect English, Chinese, Arabic, and 50 other Earth languages. They wanted to meet. They wanted to talk. They promised friendship. Captain took a small shuttle to the largest alien ship. The docking bay was enormous and clean, with walls that seemed to glow from within. When the shuttle doors opened, took a deep breath and stepped out. The air felt thin and the gravity was weak. He felt light, like he might float away if he jumped. 3 aliens waited for him. They were tall and thin, with skin that looked like purple silk. Their eyes were large and black, and they had no hair. The leader stepped forward and spoke through a translator device that hung in the air between them. "I am Ambassador of the Empire. Welcome, human. We bring greetings from the Galactic Collective, a union of 847 civilized species. Bowed slightly, I am Captain of Earth. We are honored by your visit." Made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Your world is remarkable. We have studied it from orbit. The gravity is crushing. The atmosphere is filled with corrosive oxygen. The temperature swings are extreme. The oceans are acidic. Your planet has active volcanoes, violent storms, and dangerous animals. It is a Class XII, one of the most hostile environments we have ever seen." Dr. Sara, who had joined them on the shuttle, frowned. "We find it comfortable." "Of course you do," said, and his voice carried something that sounded like pity. "You evolved there. You had no choice but to adapt. Most species in the galaxy evolved on gentle worlds, stable temperatures, calm weather, light gravity. Your people are survivors of terrible conditions. That is admirable in its way." Commander crossed his arms. "You say that like it's a weakness." "Not weakness," said quickly. "But understand, humans are not warriors. You are survivors. There is a difference. Warriors from harsh worlds are rare and usually they destroy themselves before reaching the stars. Survivors endure. They persist. But they do not thrive beyond their home." Felt anger rise in his chest but pushed it down. "Why have you come?" "The collective offers protection. Your world is isolated and vulnerable. There are dangers in the galaxy, pirates, raiders, hostile species. We can protect you, but you must accept certain terms. You will have protectorate status. You may not build military vessels. You may not leave your solar system without permission. You will provide resources and labor, and in return, we will keep you safe." "You want us to be prisoners in our own system," said, his voice hard. "We want you to be safe," replied. "You are a young species, naive. The galaxy is dangerous for those who do not understand it. This is for your own good." Looked at Sara, and Sara's face was red with anger, looked ready to fight, but had been a soldier long enough to know when to retreat and when to wait. He turned back to and smiled. "We accept your generous offer. We will need time to prepare our people and set up the systems you require." Seemed pleased. "Excellent. We will leave a small delegation to help with the transition. Welcome to the Galactic Collective, humans. We are glad you see reason." The aliens left 2 days later, leaving behind a small space station and 20 aliens to oversee Earth's integration. The world erupted in protests and celebrations, fear and hope. Some people believed the aliens were saviors. Others believed they were conquerors wearing friendly masks. Captain met with Earth's leaders in a secret facility deep underground. President, general, and the heads of every major nation sat around a table, told them everything. They think we're weak, said. They think Earth made us fragile. They see us as victims who barely survived a hostile world. General, a broad-shouldered woman with sharp eyes, leaned forward. What do you think? I think they've never met a predator, said quietly. Every species they described evolved on easy worlds. No competition, no real danger. They developed technology because they had the luxury of peace. We developed it because we needed it to survive. There's a difference. They have weapons, President said. Advanced technology, ships that can destroy cities. They have toys, said. I watched their security forces. They move like children, slow, careful, afraid of getting hurt. Their weapons are designed for show, not for killing. They've never fought a real war. Sora pulled up images on the display screen. Look at their biology. They evolved on a world with 1/3 Earth's gravity. Their bones are hollow like birds. Their muscles are weak. They breathe a thin atmosphere. In Earth's gravity, they can barely walk without assistance suits. So what do? President asked. Stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the alien space station orbiting overhead, a reminder of their new reality. He thought about's words. Survivors, not warriors. The alien had been so confident, so certain that humans were no threat. We play along, said. We accept their rules, we act grateful. And while they watch us mine asteroids and grow food, we build, we learn, we prepare. They think Earth made us weak. Let them think that. Let them believe their own lies, because one day they're going to learn what Earth really made us, and by then it will be too late. General smiled. It was not a kind smile. How long? 20 years, said. Maybe less. We'll build in secret. The asteroid belt, the dark side of the moon, underwater facilities. They won't be watching carefully because they don't think we're dangerous. That's their mistake. The leaders agreed. The plan was set. Humanity would bow its head and play the role of grateful primitives. But in the shadows, in the cold, dark places the aliens never looked, Earth's children would forge themselves into something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. Something worth fearing. 20 years passed like a slow river. To the watching galaxy, humanity seemed to accept its place. Humans worked the dangerous jobs nobody else wanted. They mined asteroids in the cold dark. They built stations in radiation zones. They hauled cargo through routes where pirates sometimes attacked. The other species paid them little, treated them like servants, and thought nothing of it. Captain stood on the bridge of her freighter, the Morning Star, watching the cargo loading process through her display screens. She was 35 years old, with short black hair and tired eyes. She had been hauling freight for 12 years, ever since she left Earth to see the galaxy. What she found disappointed her. Her crew was all human. The collective species refused to work on human ships. They said the gravity was too high, the air too thick, the conditions too harsh. Thought they were just soft. In 12 years of space travel, she had seen exactly 3 alien species she thought might survive a week on Earth. The rest would probably die from a common cold. Captain, we have company, her first officer said, pointing at the radar screen. 3 ships coming in fast. Looked at the screen. She recognized the ship design immediately. Clan raiders. Pirates who had been growing bolder over the past 5 years. The collective security fleet did almost nothing to stop them. The aliens were too afraid to fight. Are we loaded? Asked. 80%. We need another 10 minutes. We don't have 10 minutes. Send a distress signal to the collective convoy we passed yesterday. Tell them we're under attack. Sent the message and waited. A minute later, a response came back. They're evacuating the area. They say the collective security fleet will arrive in 6 hours. Laughed, but it was not a happy sound. 6 hours. They will be gone in 20 minutes with everything we own. She sat in her captain's chair and thought hard. Prepare to separate the cargo pods. We'll give them what they want and save our ship." "Captain, that's 3 months of pay." "Better than dying," said. The ship surrounded them. They were ugly vessels covered in weapons and armor plates. A message came through in broken English. "You leave now. We take cargo, you live." Authorized the separation of the cargo pods and fired the engines. The Morning Star pulled away while the ships grabbed the floating cargo. They didn't even shoot at her as she left. They had what they wanted, and fighting for more wasn't worth the effort. Later that day, sat in her quarters drinking coffee and thinking. They had been so casual about it. No threats, no violence. They just took what they wanted because they knew nobody would stop them. The collective security fleet was a joke. Their ships were beautiful and impressive looking, but they had no real weapons. Their crews evacuated at the first sign of danger. She thought about the stories her grandfather told her about Earth's history, about wars and battles, about people who fought for what was theirs. The galaxy didn't understand fighting. They understood running away. Far from freighter, deep in Earth's asteroid belt, General walked through a military facility that officially didn't exist. The facility was buried inside a massive asteroid that had been hollowed out over 15 years. Inside were factories, shipyards, training centers, and enough military hardware to conquer a small planet. Colonel saluted as the general approached. He was 40 years old, athletic and sharp-eyed, with the confident walk of someone who knew exactly what he was capable of. "General, the new ships are ready for inspection." Followed him to the main hangar. 20 ships floated in the zero-gravity construction bay. They looked nothing like the cargo vessels and mining ships the collective knew about. These were warships, sleek and deadly, covered in weapons that Earth had been developing in secret for 2 decades. "How many do we have now?" asked. 412 combat vessels, said. "Another 200 in various stages of construction. We'll have 600 by the end of the year." "And the Reaper Corps?" "Commander is running training exercises on Mars. 12,000 soldiers ready for deployment. Another 8,000 in advanced training." Nodded slowly. She walked to the observation window and looked out at the ships. Earth had obeyed the collective's rules on the surface. No military vessels in Earth orbit. No weapons development on Earth itself. But the collective had been too arrogant to watch carefully. They assumed humans were too primitive to be a threat. "What about the collective monitoring stations?" asked. "We've been feeding them false data for 18 years, said with a small smile. "They think we're mining and building cargo ships. They have no idea what we're really doing out here." On Mars, Commander stood in a training facility built underground. Around her, soldiers ran combat drills in full armor. These were the Reaper Corps, Earth's elite military force. They trained in high gravity, low gravity, and zero gravity. They trained with weapons that ranged from simple knives to advanced energy rifles. They trained to fight in conditions that would kill most alien species. Watched a squad practice close combat. They moved fast and hard, hitting each other with controlled violence that would horrify the peaceful collective species. A young soldier named Bora executed a perfect takedown on her opponent, pinning him to the floor in 3 seconds. "Good," called out, again faster this time. Her second-in-command, lieutenant, approached. "Commander, we received an update from General. The timeline has moved up." "How much?" "She wants us ready to deploy in 6 months instead of 2 years." Felt her heart beat faster. Has something happened? "The clans are getting bolder. They attacked a collective diplomatic vessel last week, killed everyone on board. The collective security fleet did nothing. General thinks it's only a matter of time before something breaks." Looked at her soldiers training. They were ready. They had been ready for years. "Tell the General we can deploy in 3 months if needed. The Reaper Corps doesn't need more time. We need targets." Back on Earth, Captain, now promoted to Admiral, met with the Planetary Council. He was older now, his hair completely gray, but his eyes were still sharp. He stood before the council and delivered his report. "The collective is failing," said. "The clans control over 30 systems now. Collective species are abandoning their colonies and fleeing to the core worlds. The security fleet has lost every engagement for the past 3 years. The collective council is paralyzed, too afraid to authorize real military action." "Why?" President asked. She was older too, but still sharp. "Because they don't understand war," said. "To them, violence is an aberration, a failure of civilization. They can't comprehend organized, purposeful combat. They understand it, but they're opportunists. They raid and steal, but don't build anything. If the collective falls, they will just find a new victim." "What do you recommend?" Pulled up a star map. It showed the collective's territory in blue and the controlled systems in red. The red was spreading like a disease. "We wait for them to ask for help. They will. Pride only lasts so long when you're dying. When they ask, we set our terms. Full military autonomy, no restrictions, access to all collective space, and they recognize us as equals, not protectorates." "And if they don't ask?" "Then the collective falls, and we deal with the ourselves. Either way, the galaxy is about to learn what they've been overlooking for 20 years. 3 months later, the clans launched their largest attack yet. They hit Prime, the diplomatic heart of the collective. The beautiful capital world, with its crystal towers and peaceful gardens, burned under weapons. The collective security fleet was destroyed in 4 hours. Thousands died. In the chaos, Ambassador, older and desperate, sent a message to Earth. It was simple and humiliating for a species that had spent 2 decades treating humans like children. "Please help us." Admiral read the message and smiled. The emergency session of the Galactic Collective Council was chaos. Representatives from 800 species shouted at each other in 100 different languages. Translation devices struggled to keep up. On the main display screen, Prime burned. The beautiful capital world, home to the collective's government for 3,000 years, was falling to the clans. High Chancellor stood at the center of the chamber trying to restore order. He was old, even for his species, with pale blue skin that had faded to almost white. His hands shook as he raised them for silence. The chamber ignored him. 7 systems have fallen in the last month, Ambassador of the Confederacy shouted. The security fleet is gone. We have nothing left to fight with. "We must negotiate," another voice called out. "Offer the territory, give them what they want." "They want everything," someone else responded. "The don't negotiate, they take." Finally managed to activate the sound dampeners. The chamber fell silent as the speakers stopped working. He spoke into his own amplified microphone. "There is one option we have not discussed." The representatives looked at him with a mixture of hope and confusion. "The humans," said, and the word felt strange in his mouth. For 20 years he had barely thought about Earth, the protectorate on the edge of collective space. Primitive survivors who did the jobs nobody else wanted. "We asked them to remain in their system, to not develop military forces, but Ambassador reported years ago that they had military experience, wars in their history. Perhaps they can help." Laughter echoed through the chamber even without the speakers. The idea seemed absurd. Humans were workers, not warriors. They hauled cargo and mined rocks. What could they possibly do against the— "We have no choice," said quietly. "Contact Earth." Ambassador stood in the human embassy on Unity Station, reading the official message from the Collective Council. She was 50 years old, with sharp features and intelligent eyes. She had been Earth's representative for 10 years, watching as the collective slowly fell apart. Now they wanted help. The terms they offered were generous. Full collective membership, no more protectorate status. Humans would be equals, they just needed to help fight the— Composed her response carefully. She sent it through official channels, knowing every species in the collective would see it. "Earth accepts your offer of full membership. However, we require complete military autonomy. Our forces will operate under human command. We require access to all collective space routes and military installations. We require the right to establish bases in any system where we deploy forces, and we require these terms to be permanent, regardless of the war's outcome. The response came back within an hour. The council agreed to everything. They were desperate. Allowed herself a small smile and sent one more message, this time on a secure channel directly to Earth. Authorization granted. Deploy the fleet. Admiral stood on the bridge of the UHNS Indomitable, humanity's first dreadnought. The ship was massive, 3 kilometers long, armed with weapons the collective had never seen. Around it, 400 human warships prepared for combat. The Ghost Fleet, built in secret over 20 years, was finally leaving the shadows. "All ships report ready, Admiral," Lieutenant said from her station. She was young, 30 years old, but she had trained her entire adult life for this moment. Looked out at his fleet. Every ship was crewed by professionals who had studied war while the rest of the galaxy played at peace. Humanity had watched the collective's failures and learned from them. They had prepared for this moment. Navigation set course for prime, maximum speed. Communications broadcast on all collective frequencies. Let them know help is coming. The fleet moved as one, jumping into faster-than-light travel. The journey would take 3 days. 3 days to reach the heart of the collective and show the galaxy what Earth had been building. On Prime, the situation was desperate. Ground forces controlled half the planet. The collective government had evacuated to bunkers deep underground. Millions of civilians were trapped in the cities, hiding from the raiders. Ambassadors sat in the command bunker, watching the displays with growing horror. They were methodical. They took what they wanted and destroyed the rest. The beautiful crystal towers were rubble. The peaceful gardens were burning. His world was dying. "Ambassador, we're receiving a transmission," a technician said. "It's from the humans." Felt a strange mixture of hope and shame. The species he had dismissed as primitive survivors were coming to save him. Put it through. Admiral's face appeared on the screen. Barely recognized him. 20 years ago, Captain had been calm and diplomatic, accepting the collective's terms with barely a protest. The man on the screen now looked different, harder, more confident. "Ambassador, this is Admiral of the United Human Nations Fleet. We'll reach your system in 72 hours. Hold on until then." "Admiral, they have over 200 warships in orbit. Ground forces control the major cities. I don't know what you can do with," stopped, counting the ships visible behind through the bridge windows. "How many ships do you have?" "Enough," said. "Prepare your people. When we arrive, stay in the bunkers. This will not be a gentle battle." The connection ended. Sat in his command chair, feeling confused. The humans sounded confident, but they were outnumbered. The fleet was massive. What could Earth possibly bring that would make a difference? 3 days later, the Ghost Fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. The fleet detected them immediately and began to reposition. Warlord, leader of the attack, looked at the scans of the incoming human ships. 400 small vessels, his tactical officer reported. Unknown design. Power signatures suggest moderate weapons. Laughed. This was the great human rescue force. The collective had fallen so far that they needed primitives from it to save them. Move to intercept. This will be quick. The two fleets approached each other at high speed. The ships were large and ugly, covered in weapons and armor. The human ships were smaller, sleeker, and organized in tight formations that confused the sensors. "They're not spreading out," the tactical officer said. "That formation makes them vulnerable to our heavy cannons." "Then fire when they're in range," ordered. The fleet opened fire first. Massive energy beams and missile salvos crossed the distance between the fleets. The human ships didn't evade. They didn't scatter. They accelerated directly into the weapon's fire. And then they learned their first lesson about human warfare. The human ship's shields were different from anything in the collective arsenal. Instead of generating a bubble of energy, they used layered defensive fields that redirected and absorbed impacts. The weapons hit the shields and dissipated. A few shots got through, but the human armor was thick, built to survive, not to look impressive. "Return fire," Admiral said calmly. The human fleet opened fire, and the galaxy saw human weapons for the first time. Kinetic accelerators launched solid projectiles at incredible speeds. The shields, designed to stop energy weapons, did almost nothing against physical impacts. Shells punched through shields and armor like they were paper. Nuclear-tipped missiles followed. The collective had abandoned nuclear weapons centuries ago, considering them barbaric and crude. Humans had refined them into precision weapons of devastating power. 3 battleships vanished in nuclear fireballs. "Impossible," whispered, watching his fleet take casualties. "What are they?" The answer came as the human ships closed to combat range. Point defense lasers, designed to shoot down missiles, turned out to be equally effective against the lightly armored ships. Human vessels weaved through the formations, firing constantly, never stopping, never retreating. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, the fleet was destroyed. 197 warships reduced to debris. The human fleet lost 6 ships, with another 20 damaged. Its flagship tried to escape. It was fast, but human ships were faster. The Indomitable caught up to it within minutes. Sent one message: "Surrender or die." Chose surrender. He was brought aboard the Indomitable in restraints, his pride shattered. Met him in the hangar bay. How asked, "Your species was nothing, cargo haulers and miners. How do you have this?" Looked at the warlord with cold eyes. "You made the same mistake the collective made. You saw where we came from and assumed it made us weak. Earth didn't make us weak. It made us strong. Every human alive is descended from survivors who conquered the most hostile environment in the galaxy. We learned to fight because we had to, and we're very, very good at it." He turned to the guards. "Take him to the brig. Colonel's forces will be landing on Prime within the hour. Tell them we've secured orbit." As was dragged away, walked back to the bridge. Through the windows, he could see Prime below, still burning from the occupation. But help was coming. The Reaper Corps was about to show the galaxy what human ground forces could do. The galaxy had overlooked that oversight was about to become very expensive. The Reaper Corps drop pods fell through Prime's atmosphere like meteors. Inside each pod, 5 human soldiers sat in crash harnesses, waiting. Commander watched the altitude counter drop on her helmet display. 30,000 meters, 20,000, 10,000. "Prepare for landing," she said over the squad channel. "Remember, the civilians are fragile. Watch your fire." The pods hit the ground hard. The impact would have killed most alien species. Humans barely felt it through their armor. The pod doors blew open with explosive charges, and the Reaper Corps stepped out into a city at war. Prime's capital had been beautiful once. Crystal towers, floating gardens, streets paved with polished stone. Now it was ruins. They had destroyed everything they couldn't steal. Bodies lay in the streets. Most were civilians who had been too slow to hide. Squad moved through the streets in combat formation. They were 12 soldiers wearing powered armor that made them look like mechanical monsters. Their weapons were a mix of human designs: assault rifles, grenade launchers, and close combat blades, everything built to kill efficiently. "Contact 200 meters north side," Specialist Bora said. She was the squad's scout, small and fast even in the heavy armor. Saw them through her helmet display. A patrol, 8 soldiers moving between buildings. They were looting, carrying stolen goods back to their transports. They hadn't noticed the humans yet. "Engage on my mark," said. She raised her rifle, aimed, and fired. The patrol died in seconds. They barely had time to register the attack before human bullets tore through their armor. One tried to return fire, but his weapon was designed for long-range combat. At close range against fast-moving targets, it was useless. The last soldier dropped his weapon and ran. Bora caught him within 10 steps, tackling him to the ground. The alien was bigger than her, but she was stronger. She pinned him easily, her armored knee on his back. "Don't kill me," they begged. "Please, we'll leave, we'll go." Walked over and pulled off her helmet. She wanted him to see her face. Human, calm, in control. "Where are the civilians you took prisoner?" "The processing center, 3 blocks east. They're sending them off-world. We don't kill them, we just..." "Show us," said. They led them to a large building that had once been a cultural center. Now it was a prison. Hundreds of civilians were locked inside, guarded by 20 soldiers. Assessed the situation quickly. Too many civilians too close to the guards. A straight assault would get innocents killed. "Take your fire teams around back. Wait for my signal. Bora, you're with me. We're going through the front door." And Bora walked up to the main entrance like they belonged there. The guards saw them and raised their weapons in confusion. "Humans? Here, how?" Spoke in the language which she had learned during training. "We have orders from Warlord. He wants these prisoners moved immediately. Collective reinforcements are coming." The guard commander looked uncertain. "I didn't receive any." Moved. She covered the distance in 2 steps, faster than the guard could react, and punched him in the throat. The impact broke his windpipe. He fell, choking. Bora shot the other 3 guards before they could raise their weapons. The signal was given. Then teams breached the back entrance. The battle inside lasted 90 seconds, 20 guards against 12 human soldiers. It was not a fair fight. When the shooting stopped, opened the prisoner-holding area. Hundreds of civilians stared at her with wide eyes. They looked fragile and terrified. Many were injured. All were traumatized. "You're safe now," said in the language. "Stay here. Medical teams are coming. Don't go outside until we secure the area." One of the civilians, an older male with purple skin, stepped forward. "Are you the humans, the ones the council called?" "Yes." "I didn't believe them when they said you could fight. We heard you were just workers, simple people from a harsh world." Smiled grimly. "We are simple people. That's why we're good at this. War is simple. You identify the enemy, you kill them efficiently, and you protect your own. The collective made it complicated because they were afraid of it. We're not afraid." Across the city, Colonel led the main assault force. 1,200 Reaper Corps soldiers against 5,000 occupation troops. They had superior numbers and defensive positions. On paper, they should have won. But war wasn't fought on paper. Forces moved through the city like a coordinated machine. They used tactics they had never encountered. Human soldiers advanced under covering fire, used buildings for concealment, and coordinated their attacks with devastating precision. When they tried to set up defensive positions, human snipers eliminated the officers. When they tried to counterattack, human grenades and missiles broke their formations. They had evolved on a low-gravity world with few predators. They had learned to fight through raiding and piracy. They understood ambushes and quick strikes, but not sustained combat against a determined enemy. Human soldiers, who had evolved hunting megafauna on a understood violence at a fundamental level. A commander radioed flagship for instructions. "They're everywhere. We can't stop them. They don't retreat. They don't surrender. What are they?" The flagship didn't respond. It was in human custody, its commander imprisoned. By nightfall, the battle for the capital was over. The forces surrendered or fled. Colonel stood in the city center, watching his soldiers set up medical stations and distribute supplies to civilians. Lieutenant approached with a casualty report. 18 wounded, none critical. No deaths, she said. Nodded. 18 wounded against 5,000 enemies. The Reaper Corps had performed exactly as trained. What about enemy casualties? 800 dead, 2,000 captured, the rest fled into the wilderness. Local security forces are hunting them down. Good, get the wounded to medical. Rotate the squads. I want fresh troops on patrol through the night. Ambassador emerged from his bunker as the sun set. The city was damaged but standing. Human soldiers patrolled the streets, providing security. Medical teams treated injured civilians with an efficiency that amazed him. The humans had saved his world in one day. He found Admiral in the temporary command center, was studying tactical displays, planning the next operation, approached carefully. Admiral, I need to thank you. I thought. He struggled to find words. Looked up from his displays. You thought we were weak. Yes, I'm ashamed to admit it. We all thought Earth had broken you, made you fragile survivors who could barely handle their own world. Earth didn't break us, said quietly. It forged us. Every human alive carries the genetic memory of ancestors who survived impossible conditions. We learned to use tools to hunt animals that could kill us. We learned to work together against threats that could wipe out our tribes. We learned to fight because the alternative was extinction. The collective species evolved on easy worlds. They never needed those skills. We needed them every day. The other species need to know this, said. They need to understand what you are. They will, promised. The Control 30 systems, we're going to take them all back, every single one. The galaxy is going to watch us do it, and they're going to learn a lesson they should have learned 20 years ago. Never underestimate a species we're not victims. We're not survivors. We're apex predators who chose civilization. And when civilization is threatened, we remember what we are. Over the next 3 months, the human military conducted a campaign that military historians would study for centuries. The Ghost Fleet swept through controlled space, defeating every fleet that challenged them. The Reaper Corps liberated occupied worlds with minimal casualties. Human tactics, human weapons, and human determination proved unstoppable. The clans who had terrorized the galaxy for decades collapsed. Their warlords surrendered or died. Their fleets were destroyed or captured. Their territory was returned to the collective. Captain, still hauling freight, watched a human pass her ship in one of the reclaimed systems. She thought about the first time she saw the attack, how helpless she had felt. Now those same pirates ran from anything with a human flag. She sent a message to her old friend, who had joined the military. I guess we're not just cargo haulers anymore. His response came back quickly. We never were, the galaxy just couldn't see it. On Earth, General read the reports and allowed herself a rare moment of satisfaction. The plan had worked. 20 years of patience, preparation, and playing weak had paid off. Humanity had earned its place in the galaxy not through words, but through action. The collective would never overlook the again. They had paid a terrible price for that lesson, and they would remember it for generations. The Treaty of New Soul was signed aboard the UHNS Indomitable, humanity's flagship. Representatives from all 847 collective species attended, either in person or through hologram. The massive conference room had been designed for this moment, with gravity controls adjusted for each species' comfort. High Chancellor sat across from Ambassador. He looked older than his years, worn down by the war and the shame of needing rescue. Around the table sat other collective leaders, all of them showing the same exhaustion and humility. Read through the treaty terms one final time before the signing. The document was simple and direct, nothing like the complicated agreement the collective had forced on Earth 20 years ago. Earth and all human colonies will have full collective membership with permanent seats on the Security Council, she read. Human military forces will have unrestricted access to all collective space and resources. The protectorate status is dissolved. All restrictions on human activities are removed. The collective recognizes humanity as a founding security partner. We agree to all terms, said quietly. 20 years ago, he had dictated terms to Captain with barely disguised contempt. Now he signed a treaty that gave humanity everything it wanted. The irony was not lost on him. The signing took 3 hours. Every species representative added their mark to the document. When it was done, stood and addressed the assembly. The collective made a mistake 20 years ago. You saw Earth and thought it had made us weak. You saw survivors and assumed we couldn't fight. You offered us protection we didn't need and restrictions we didn't deserve. Today, we correct that mistake. Humanity joins the collective not as children to be protected, but as partners to be respected. We fought for you because it was right, not because we had to. Remember that. The assembly remained silent. What could they say? Everything said was true. Dr. Sora, now Earth Science Minister, gave a speech to the Galactic Assembly the next day. The assembly hall was packed with representatives wanting to understand how they had been so wrong about humanity. Sora stood at the podium, looking out at hundreds of alien faces. She had spent her career studying alien biology. Now she would teach them about human biology. For 20 years you called Earth she began. You were right. Earth has high gravity, a toxic atmosphere, extreme temperatures, active geology, and dangerous wildlife. By collective standards, it's barely habitable. But here's what you didn't understand: don't just kill. They evolve survivors, and survivors develop certain traits. She displayed images of Earth's history. Predators prey, ancient humans fighting for survival. Humans evolved as persistent hunters. We chased our prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We learned to work in groups, communicate complex ideas, and solve problems cooperatively. We developed endurance that no other known species can match. A human can run for hours. A human can fight for days with minimal rest. A human can survive injuries that would kill most species in this room. A representative from the Empire raised a hand. But you're not just survivors, you're warriors. How did that happen? Because Earth demanded it, Sora explained. Human tribes fought each other for resources. We developed weapons, tactics, and strategies over thousands of generations. War became part of our culture. We wrote poems about it, taught our children about it, honored those who were good at it. When we developed technology, we applied it to warfare immediately. Not because we're evil, but because violence is a tool we understand. She pulled up another display, showing human soldiers in combat armor. The Reaper Corps represents the peak of human evolution guided by conscious design. They're trained from childhood to fight in any environment. They can operate in zero gravity, underwater in toxic atmospheres, or on high-gravity worlds. They don't hesitate, don't panic, and don't stop until the mission is complete. To you, they might seem like monsters. To us, they're what happens when you give a species military training. Should we be afraid of you? Another representative asked. Sora smiled. It was a kind smile, but there was steel behind it. No, you should respect us. There's a difference. Humanity doesn't want to conquer the galaxy. We want to be part of it, but we'll never accept being treated as inferiors again. We fought for the collective because you were in danger and we could help. Next time, remember that before you need us. The assembly gave her a standing ovation. Not because they wanted to, but because they understood that humanity had earned it. General oversaw the integration of human forces into the collective defense fleet. The Ghost Fleet became the Rapid Response Force, able to deploy anywhere in collective space within days. The Reaper Corps trained elite units from other species, teaching them human tactics and strategies. Not all species could handle human military training. Most were too fragile physically, too gentle psychologically. But a few species from moderately hostile worlds proved capable. General watched a mixed-species unit run combat drills on a training station near Mars. Colonel stood beside her. "They are doing well," he said, pointing at a squad of reptilian aliens keeping pace with human soldiers. They evolved on a high-gravity world, not as high as Earth, but enough. They understand physical hardship. "What about the others?" asked. "They are trying, but they're too delicate. We've had to modify the training significantly. Most species can handle the strategy and tactics, but not the physical demands. They're good support forces, though. Intelligence, logistics, medical." Nodded. The collective was learning to use its strengths. Humans would handle combat. Other species would provide support. It was a more efficient system than the old way, where everyone pretended they could fight. Commander walked through Unity Station, the new collective capital. The station was massive, built jointly by human and alien engineers. It orbited a neutral star system, accessible to all collective members. The station showed what humans and aliens could accomplish together when they worked as equals. She stopped at an observation deck and looked out at the ships passing by. Freighters from 100 species, mixed military patrols, diplomatic vessels. The galaxy was peaceful again, but it was a different kind of peace. Not the fragile peace of species too afraid to fight, but the strong peace of species protected by those who could. Captain docked at Unity Station with a cargo of rare metals from the outer reaches. She had expanded her operation over the past year, hearing more ships and crews. The Morning Star was now the flagship of a small merchant fleet. As she walked through the station, she noticed the change in how aliens treated humans. No more condescension, no more pitying looks. When she passed security checkpoints, the guards saluted. When she entered trading offices, merchants stood to greet her. Respect had replaced contempt. She met at a station bar. He was on leave from the Reaper Corps, wearing his uniform with pride. They sat at a table overlooking the docking bays and shared drinks. "Do you think they'll ever forget," asked, "what we did to the—" Shook his head. "No, and that's good. Fear keeps people honest. They don't have to like us, but they'll think twice before treating us like servants again." "Is that what you want, to be feared?" "I want to be respected," said. "Fear is just the price the galaxy paid for disrespecting us. 20 years they kept us in a cage. 3 months we showed them why that was a mistake. The lesson cost them thousands of lives and dozens of worlds. Next time they'll think first." Admiral stood in the command center of Unity Station with Ambassador. They watched the main display screen showing real-time data from across collective space. Trade routes were open. Colonies were thriving. The systems had been peacefully resettled. Everything was working. "It's strange," said. 20 years ago, we were prisoners in our own system. Now we're running the collective's defense network." "We earned it," said. "Every ship, every soldier, every battle. The collective learned that strength isn't about having the most ships or the biggest weapons. It's about having the will to use them when necessary." "Do you think they'll resent us eventually, for saving them?" Considered the question. "Some will, others will be grateful, most will just accept the new reality. We're not asking to rule the galaxy, we're just asking to be treated as equals. That's reasonable." Looked out at the stars. "My grandfather told me stories about Earth's history, about empires that rose and fell, nations that conquered and were conquered. Do you think humanity will fall someday? That will become arrogant like the collective was?" "Probably," admitted. "Nothing lasts forever, but right now we have a chance to build something good. A galaxy where species are judged by their character, not where aren't dismissed as weak, where strength serves peace instead of conquest. If we can do that, even for a few centuries, it will be worth it." Dr. Sora published a comprehensive study on human evolution and its implications for galactic society. The paper became required reading at every collective university. Young aliens learned about Earth, about the challenges humans faced, about how adversity created strength. A new generation of collective species grew up knowing that weren't victims to be. They were partners to be respected. The old prejudices didn't disappear completely, but they faded. 5 years after the treaty signing, Earth hosted the first Galactic Peace Summit. Representatives from all collective species came to see that had changed their civilization. They walked through human cities, ate human food, and experienced Earth's environment in protective suits. Most found it terrifying. The gravity crushed them. The oxygen levels made them dizzy. The weather patterns seemed violent and unpredictable. But they understood, finally, what Earth had done to the species that evolved there. It had made them strong. Captain, now retired, gave the closing speech at the summit. He stood before the assembled representatives, an old man who had seen humanity rise from restricted protectorate to galactic power. 20 years ago you came to Earth and offered us protection, he said. You thought you were helping a weak species survive. You were wrong, but your intentions were good. Today, we protect you because we choose to, not because we have to. That's the difference between serving and partnering. Remember that difference and we'll build a galaxy worth living in. The representatives applauded, not politely but genuinely. They understood now. The galaxy had overlooked they had seen survivors and assumed weakness. They had seen a harsh world and assumed it broke its children. They paid a terrible price for that assumption. Thousands of lives lost, worlds burned, peace shattered. But they learned. They learned that don't break their children, they forge them. They learned that humanity didn't become strong despite Earth. They became strong because of it. They learned that the species you dismiss today might be the species you need tomorrow. And most importantly, they learned to never underestimate someone just because they survived hell. Because surviving hell doesn't make you weak. It makes you dangerous.